Welcome to the LowCarb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the LowCarb MD podcast. We actually have a smart doctor with us who's been a mentor. Tro's laughing already. What happened, man? We haven't even gotten started yet.
Listen, I think I jumped the gun. You know, I jumped the gun too early, and just sometimes that happens. But I'm excited. We have somebody who's influenced both of us. You know, Brian. Somebody who's been passionate about educating doctors for a number of years now in the low carb space. He's an author. He's a family doctor, an obesity medicine doctor. The Denver's diet doctor. We have Dr. Jeff Gerber here with us, and I'm stoked. Brian, I know you're stoked.
Yeah, I mean, he puts on the best conferences, and you know, some of the speakers are substandard. Like he let Tro in this year, and made me sit on the sidelines. But besides that, Tro, I don't have hard feelings. But really, I want to start out with this, because our Patreon supporters are here looking, guys, everyone, guys, girls, everyone. Tro and I had a profit this year at the end of the last year. I didn't have a call from Tro going, hey, you got to pony up some money because we got to pay the guy who does the video editing and the sound and all that kind of stuff. Chris and Jack, we got to pay those guys actually to do this stuff. So Tro and I haven't taken a penny from the podcast, but we had a surplus for the first time, this is new for us, and so we donated to charity at the advice of Tro. So we never took anything home. We don't tell our wives this happened, but so I got to donate it to the Merlot Foundation, who does the medical trips that I go on, and they help people in Guatemala, third world, and everything. So I think it's a worthwhile cause. Tro, what did you do with your money?
Yeah, I'm going to be donating it either to the Empath or to the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, or both. So yeah, we did have a small surplus, and
we owe that to our Patreon supporters because we don't take any sponsors for the podcast. We were going to charge Gerber $7.50 to come on, but we decided to waive that fee for this year.
Well, he's too busy dealing with electronic medical records to be able to make a profit, I think. So
Doc, welcome. It's so great to have you. He's transitioning to electronic medical records.
Yes, well,
horrible stuff.
It's great to be back on the podcast, Tro and Brian, and hello to your audience. And it's great, the podcast that you do, and the information that you're providing to the podcast. And yes, we had mentioned we have these old archival paper charts, and finally in 2022 we converted over to the electronic health record. And I hate to say it, we're kind of conforming to what the man wants.
Yeah, your establishment now. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah. Well, look, I often tell my patients, they want to use their health insurance. They still want to work within the healthcare system, and someone's got to be there to help them navigate through the landmines. So that's 100%. What we do.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, and I'd love to get your thought on this. Somebody asked me, we had this conference at SMHP, and now we're going to have a great conference at LowCarb Denver in just under a month. And I'm super excited about this conference. And, we had some interesting greats there. We had Mark Cucuzzella, we had Eric Westman, and we had Dr. Unwin. And, it's funny, they called being a good doctor all kind of the same thing. Eric Westman said being a good doctor is being people for that moment, assessing what they need, and maybe spending more time with them. And he said it's clinical experience. Dr. Unwin said, he said it's like being a wizard. He's like, you just kind of have to know. You have to trust, make your patients believe in you, trust you, and motivate you. And it's funny, I called it Jedi mind tricks. You have to, you have to get your patients to believe in the cause of lifestyle, and you have to be there in those moments when they've lost hope. Right. So you tell me, what's your definition of being a great doctor and navigating? What is it to you? What is being a great doctor to you?
Yeah, Tro. So that's a great list of people that you just mentioned that were at the conference down there in Boca. And, it is a Jedi trick. I would call it just warming up to your patient, and, you trusting the patient and the patient trusting you. And so half the fun is getting to know them. And it's great to be on a podcast with two other physicians. So we're in the trenches trying to, help our patients. And so, in primary care, especially, just having that interaction and working with the patient. And a lot of the patients come to us because they don't really trust the medical system. And so they want someone that they can trust to help them navigate. And where we sit, we have the ability to prescribe medicine. We have the ability to de-prescribe medicine. We have the ability to talk to patients about nutrition and what we believe is proper nutrition. And so we are, in a sense, the Jedi Knights, along with those other people you mentioned.
Yeah, I can't, I think Brian's talked about it a lot. Part of, and maybe Brian, you could chime in here, a lot of medicine, you said it could be giving people hope. Dr. Unwin said, man, if I could market placebo, I would. He said sometimes placebo works, 50% in neuropathic pain and, 40% in depression, and he basically said, we just got to give them hope. And, it's like you were right there with them.
Yeah, you have hope and you have to trust the process, right? It's scary. It's like you're starting, like I just had a lady yesterday and she was almost in tears. She goes, I've tried everything. And one of my favorite patients, she's 76 years old. She's at every meeting we have. She does everything. She's lost 42 pounds. She went to her doctor and he said, if you're 76, just live your life. Don't worry about it, right? Now she's out hiking and fishing and doing all this stuff. And you look at her and she's like full of energy, full of life, right? And so there's a benefit of believing. She came to me, she goes, look, you're my last hope. If you don't do this, then and she's like met all expectations. She's like way past her initial goals. Like it's unimaginable. But I think sometimes just getting on that journey, so doctors like Gerber out there doing this and giving us hope to say, okay, he's doing it. He's still in business. Maybe we can do it too,
Yeah. So, look, I'd like to say I've been at this now for almost 25 years. So it's great to see what's happened in terms of the healthcare community and the general public all kind of focusing on diet and nutrition. And look, one example of helping patients, for instance, that are diabetic and they want to address nutrition and we want to look at medication. And I don't know what your position is on this, but there's a class of medication that's been out since 2005. Basically, it's a GLP-1, GIP-1 analogs. And in the right setting, they can be really helpful to patients. And, when you look at the mechanisms, it addresses root cause. And so one of the things that we can do as physicians and nutrition advisors is to look at the medications that the patients are on and what they're taking for the diabetes. And if they can't do it just with nutrition alone, we're going to look at the medication and tweak that for them.
It's interesting. I was looking into this and, people say that these GLP-1 drugs, they break the carbohydrate insulin model, right? They break the model. And in fact, every single patient that I've had that's on it, and I'd say it's roughly 10 to 15%, or less, that are on it, that are on a drug like this, probably less. Their insulin level goes down. And if you look at the mechanism of the drug, what does it do? It stabilizes glycemia. So it makes insulin release more efficiently, so you don't need as much, right? And it makes your blood sugar really, really stable. And the other thing it does is, which decreases hunger, by the way. So having a stable blood sugar decreases hunger. And then the other thing it does is it tells the brain you're full. You want to know two interesting things? I know a diet that does that. It's called low carb. Low carb, when you have protein and fat without carbohydrate, your body releases more GLP, endogenous GLP, right? This is like studied. We take lard, we take olive oil, we take proteins, and we give it to people. Their GLP goes through the roof. The minute you add a starch, that GLP is gone, right? And what's the best way to stabilize the blood sugar? GLP, a low carb diet.
Yep.
Right. So
and fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, and that's. I'll tell you, my word of caution on this is I think we have to look at it as a temporary Band-Aid and a fix, because long-term, there's going to be issues. And here's the issue. Raphael Sertoli just posted a study showing that you can increase, like what happens is when our fat cells are totally stretched out, they're hard to oxidize the fat. So what we're doing is let's add some extra storage units of fat cells, and then we could move that fat over. And when you do that, yes, you're going to have weight loss. But what happens in the long term when you say, I'm going to go back to eating cookies and donuts? And that's what the doctors are doing nowadays. The dangerous part is they're saying, don't change your life. Like they're saying these low carb guys are nuts. Just go on this diet and you'll lose weight. Yes, you will. Temporarily, at least.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. I was just about to mention Raphael Sertelli, and he's our friend in Europe, and he's actually been at our conference, and he is not a fan of this new class of medication, as you mentioned, Brian. And
but I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago, I interviewed him right before that, and he goes, "This is the way to go. I think it's the way to go." But he saw this is what we have to do as health practitioners, say, oh, there's new data that's coming out. Maybe we need to reassess rather than saying, okay, I already said that this is the best thing, so I'm going to stick with it no matter what.
Well, in context, this is what I believe we're doing right, and what we're seeing the use of the medication in the wrong context. And so we have weight loss clinics in town, and you may have heard that the pharma companies have provided coupons, because, the drugs out of pocket are about $1,500 a month. You have to be like a movie star or someone really wealthy, or to have diabetes. So if you have diabetes, the insurance company will cover the medication. But a lot of patients that are pre-diabetic or insulin resistant, as you know, will benefit from the medication. But these people are running to the weight loss clinics, and somehow the weight loss clinics get these coupons, and they're only good for a year. And they take these medications and they pump it up to maximum dosage. And the patients and the providers know that in a year it's over. So it's a short-term solution. They're not necessarily addressing diet. And it's going to fail in the end. But in the right context, along with a low carb diet, we've been using these medications as just an adjuvant. We're just, giving them a little bit. We just give them just enough. We slowly increase it. And, we keep in mind that, there's a long-term endpoint. And that's how I believe we're helping our patients compared to, what we're seeing elsewhere in the community.
I'm so glad we're discussing this, because nobody's going to discuss this controversy. Very recently, a mentor of mine, Nina Teicholz, she put out a tweet saying, after the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, said that every 13-year-old should be offered bypass and these drugs, she said, hey, there's a caution here. We need to think differently, right? And it's funny, like, none of us here are anti-drugs. We're all doctors, so we can prescribe these, right? The problem is we're dealing with regulatory capture, and we're dealing with people who I think aren't looking at things systemically and critically. I mean, what is the those years from 12 to 18, you're still in puberty. What is the effect of these hormones on puberty? What is the effect on the rest of their lives? Like, we'll never know. Right? We'll never know, because it won't be tested. These are already approved in those age groups. So the problem is I think people, get a product, like, let's say in other injections, and now this is an injection, but like any new product, you could say, an injection for lowering cholesterol. You can say an injection for preventing severe death from an infectious disease. You can say an injection for a hormone. There's this part of medicine that's just it's like irrationally pro-drug, right? And it just benefits industry, and it doesn't benefit people. And I feel like it's 80% of doctors. Am I crazy to think that way? I mean, the AAP just said every 12-year-old should be offered this.
Yeah. So look, it's like a magic pill. And, it seems that we've worked for the pharmaceutical industry all these years, and, we're appealing to people's desire to have a quick fix. And it's just outrageous that there would even be a suggestion of bariatric surgery for children. Oh my. And so, that's where, we're here to really take a look at this and help our patients to navigate through these landmines, and to, understand that, at the end of the day, when it comes to lifestyle issues, there really isn't a magic pill other than addressing healthy diet and exercise.
Yeah, we're in a conundrum. I'll give you an example. This just recently happened with me. I have a patient who's been struggling with obesity and struggles with food addiction problems like this. His A1C has been 6.4 at like 4 different times. He's never crossed 6.5. So during the holidays, he was off the rails. I was like, well, we can maybe get you qualified for one of these drugs if you want to. Guess what? He said 6.4 still, and his insulin's through the roof. And he's a perfect candidate that this drug would be helpful in the short term, but he can't get it. He's going to cost him $1,500 because his insurance isn't going to cover it unless he has that diagnosis of diabetes, which we know he already has based on his numbers. So there's so many things like that are frustrating. That being said, I have another patient who went to another doctor and the guy has no risk factor. He has no diabetes, none of that stuff, but he just cosmetically wants to lose 15 pounds, and the insurance covered it for him somehow, miraculously. And you look and you go, gosh darn it, the people who really need help, having a drug that costs $1,500 a month is a disaster for a lot of people. They just can't do it. But then you say, well, in the long term, what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to get that appetite under control, shrink down the fat cells, and stay active, watch your stress, get sleep, all these things we're talking about at length.
Yeah. So it's ironic. I tell my patients, well, let's have you gain 20, 30 pounds and become diabetic, and then the insurance will cover the medication. And you and I know very well that the medication in the pre-diabetic is very beneficial, and it's regulation. These drugs are marketed for weight loss, okay, and for diabetes. But the problem is, if the diabetes drug is $1,500 out of pocket, the weight loss drug is $3,000 out of pocket. And, we agree that they can potentially help patients in the right context, but there's so much irony in it.
Yeah. And the irony too, people who criticize all three of us, right? We give our money away to charity when we have a profit. These guys, what they're doing is, and as a matter of fact, it was very questionable right before the week before this drug came out. These same guys were attacking Jason Fung, saying he's a clown, he's an idiot, attacking Tro, attacking all of us in the low carb community, saying you guys are idiots. There's a new drug coming, right? And now these guys are saying $99 a month and we'll prescribe this drug to you. You don't have to follow up. We all know it's this mental part we're talking about. Like we started this saying, hey, do you trust me? Do you trust the process? But when you say, I want the easy way out, then you don't want to say, oh, I have to go to the gym. I have to, get my sleep. I have to cut back on my alcohol. It's the same thing as when we saw the benefits of a ketogenic diet. Everyone said exogenous ketones. They were multimillionaires, the people who were making that, because everyone wanted to drink ketones and go party all night and drink and, eat terrible food and lose weight. But it doesn't help the long-term success.
It reminds me of all the commercials for weight loss. I mean, what are we doing in this? There's so many options for weight loss. We just bypass what we're doing. There's so many other options. And, the point is we're really here to help our patients long-term and looking at chronic medical problems. So the angle is different. And, we shouldn't be attacking each other on social media.
Look, I got to be honest with you. I somewhat disagree with the attack on social media. We have a doctor right now who has a $100 program to get a script for a GLP-1 inhibitor, right? So he charges people who are desperate and need a comprehensive care $100 to get a script for GLP-1s, and it's $100 a month. And they use coupons right now, but those coupons aren't going to last. And these people are grifters. I mean, I'm sorry, they're grifters, right?
Yes. Well,
so and the thing is they lob the grifting, message over this way, right? Like I don't make money off of telling people, hey, maybe you should look deeper and not consider a medication. I don't make money off that. There's no way to make, but these people are literally creating scalable businesses that charge $99 a month for a script for a GLP-1. I mean, I think they should be locked up.
Yeah. Okay. I have to withdraw my statement about we shouldn't be attacking people on social media because I forgot I'm talking to Tro at the moment. But,
sorry.
Oh gosh, accusing people of grifting, it goes in either direction. And so, look,
yeah,
I think,
right.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have a conversation and no, this is, social media is kind of like medical research where we're attacking each other. And I think it's a great platform because then it creates a discussion. And I think, just for our audience to understand, this is what we're doing. This is our sphere. This is our contribution. And you're going to hear pros and cons about what we're doing, pros and cons or whatever other people are doing. And we're just here to help our patients and the people to understand and to educate and to offer our perspective.
Yeah. And I think the big thing that we offer is saying, hey, look, we'll guide you through this. You're going to go through divorce. You're going to have stress. You're going to have, and so many of us get out, we get stressed and we're tense and we can't sleep. And that impacts our, craving. And we drink and then we say, okay, I'm going to have some cookies tonight. I'll start next week after the New Year's. And so as a matter of fact, a perfect example, I had a new patient to me that came in from Arizona, and he's a professor, one of the brightest guys. He knows the data. He knows Gerber. He knows all these guys, Ivor Cummins. He knows it all. He goes, I know it all, but I can't implement it. That's where I need your help. So we can educate all and until you're ready to say, okay, I'm going to put on my running shoes and go for a run, or I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to get out of bed a little earlier, making those lifestyle changes. It's easy to read about golf, but you got to go play the game at some point.
Yep. Well, absolutely. And, that's what we do with our patients each and every day.
So can we shift gears a little bit? Because I'm a little bit excited about this year's conference because one of my heroes is there. So you got Karim Nasir to come, and I'm so jealous of that, and not jealous, but like happy to see that, first of all. So what is he going to be talking about? Let's talk about the conference a little bit. That's one of the people coming to the LowCarb Denver Conference, right? And I'm just curious, how did you manage to do that? Because I'd imagine somebody like that, there's a little hesitation. There's a little hesitation. So how did you manage to maneuver that?
Yeah, so Karim Nasir is a preventive cardiologist, and he accepted the invitation immediately. He didn't even hesitate, and so we've been big fans, as you are, for years, following him on social media and the research and
research.
It's well published in the literature, and we can get into some of the other content in the conference. But Karam's focus is on cardiology and imaging, specifically heart calcium scores. And he was telling us a great story that the term the power of zero, meaning that if you have a zero calcium score, your risk of having an event is less than 2% in 10 years. And in a sense, the calcium score has worked its way finally into the guidelines, the American Heart Association guidelines, as a tool to guide healthcare professionals in terms of how they treat patients, whether to medicate, whether not to medicate. And so it's really gone in the right direction over the years. And Karim is happy to hear this. But he actually tells me that he was working back in the 90s with his fellows, her cardiology fellows, and he doesn't take credit, but kind of collectively as a group, they came up with this term power of zero. And so Karim will be talking about the latest in cardiovascular imaging. And I think you were a little bit
shocked. I think I was the first person, I don't know, tell me the truth. I tweeted, I was like, please, Jeff, get him over there. Tell me that was the tipping point.
Yeah, well, that was the tipping point. That was it. Without your tweet, it would not have worked.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, we need to get him there. So I'm so happy.
But the reason, you were a little shocked about it is that, Karim is kind of, he's walking on the fence in terms of where we're going with heart disease prevention. So he's worked with Dr. Agatston, who, he's worked with calcium score. In fact, it's called the Agatston score. And, Dr. Agatston is part of our community, and Karim worked with him, has done research with him over the years. But your hesitation is that Karim isn't necessarily a low carb advocate.
Well, if anything, he already gets a lot of heat from conventional cardiology because of his views that calcium score is more powerful than, say, an LDL is. And so he, I think, I don't know what it's like to be him. I got to be honest, his work is fantastic. His work with some other giants in the preventive cardiology field are so important. But I know that there's a sort of the Power of Zero clan gets a lot of heat from the Thomas Day Springs and other parts of cardiology, right, that are more LDL ApoB focused. Whereas his message is like, let's focus on the disease process itself radiographically, which is and you know, as you said, it's not a new concept, but it's newly in favor.
Yeah. So look, the heart calcium score group have always been somewhat anti-establishment, just like us, and you know, to think outside the box. And like I said, the calcium score was not recognized for decades in the guidelines up until the last 10 years. And so that's really where Karam comes from. He is somewhat anti-establishment and thinking outside the box. And again, if you have a zero calcium score, he agrees, and there's mainstream evidence to demonstrate that there's no benefit of statins. Now, Karam also, you know, looks at LDL cholesterol. He understands low carb. He thinks low carb is good. He's on the fence about, you know, a high fat diet. And when we did a podcast, I said, you know, Karam, you're coming to a conference. It's a low carb conference. And so, you know, the message there is not to fear fat. And he says, yes, I understand. But that's the point of the conference, is we're trying to get some different perspectives and to really educate the audience and to hear everyone's opinion.
Yeah, and you know, and then also having Nadir Ali saying, hey, eat mostly fat, Ali, right? So he's a interventional cardiologist who also understands this stuff. So you kind of look and say, what's the real enemy? You know, Philip Ovadia being one of them, a cardiothoracic surgeon, and you know, him eating a big pile of meat, and you're like, what do you? I asked him, like, who the heck are you? And he goes, I'm a heart surgeon. I'm like, really? Because, you know, as a matter of fact, Jeff, when you were talking about coronary calcium, I had never in my career ordered a coronary calcium. You and Ivor were talking and about coronary calcium and about Kraft and all that. And I remember pulling Ivor aside and go, look, that's nice. You're an engineer, but you're not the one that's going to have to testify in court where people don't understand the science, right? And they go, LDL was a lot, yeah, but look at the insulin. And he's the one who convinced me to go back and look at insulin level and A1C and that correlation with cardiac disease. And every one of my patients who had major coronary disease, bypass surgery, all had high insulin when I checked it, right? Not all of them had high LDL. A lot of them had normal LDL. So if I was just looking at that as the marker, that's where you're missing the boat. It goes both ways, where you have to really look at all the factors and, you know, what neighborhood that LDL is sitting in also.
Yeah. So really it goes way back with Ivor, and, you know, Ivor's made a significant contribution to the community, and we've learned a lot along the way. It's just, we started a little bit sooner than you guys. So we had the opportunity to meet Joe Kraft with the insulin assay. And then, you know, we together, Ivor and I had learned about the heart calcium score and the importance of that, the contribution. And, you know, you might mention that you have patients that have high LDL and a zero calcium score, or you have a patient with a low LDL and a high calcium score. And then you look at the insulin and you know, how do the things correlate or not correlate? So, you know, this is the point. You have to look at the total metabolic health of the individual. And again, addressing cardiovascular disease is an inflammatory disease, just like everything else we're looking at.
100%. And when I saw Kerm this year there, I was like, yes, I got to be honest. I was like, I can't freaking wait to go. And I'm so excited to go.
You know what Mike convinced me to, bro?
1 second, Brian. He is probably the premier. I can't think of somebody better to talk about preventive cardiac imaging. I cannot think of one. I mean, just to tell you, maybe like one other person. So I'm so excited about that.
Maybe Arthur Agatston.
Well, yes, absolutely.
As an aside, Dr. Agatston is one of the nicest people on earth. Him and Ben Bakikio, those two together. I sat with them one night in Boca last year. What a group. These guys are fantastic. They're the top of the top, and they're the nicest guys. I mean, so kind and humble and great. Like, they're great clinicians, not just arrogant guys who know what they're talking about. These are real salt of the earth people, which is nice that we're associated with these people. But the only reason I'm thinking about flying out for the day, if you could schedule them on the same day, maybe I could sneak away. But Lane Norton and Tro Kalasian speaking at the same conference, I can't wait for the question and answer to see these two guys have fun together.
Yeah.
Oh, are we on a panel together?
Yeah. Well, look, I was going to mention Tro's buddy, Lane Norton's going to be at the conference, and you're both speaking. So Lane is on Friday morning, and Tro, you're on Friday afternoon.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I'm going to put a CGM on Tro and see what his sugars do during those times, the stress hormones and all that fun stuff.
And so listen, these two butt heads, and so they're agitators on social media. And Lane will say it in a moment that his MO is to insult people when it's funny. Okay. And I think over the years, he's really kind of backed off a little bit. And, over the past year, I've had an opportunity to speak with him virtually. And he's really a nice guy in person. And he's very appreciative.
He's definitely different in person.
Yeah. And so I hope that will come out at the conference. And, honestly, there's a lot of things that I agree with him. There's also things that I disagree. And, sometimes he's pushing the barometer and, for instance, he wants us not to cherry pick, and he cherry picks himself and he'll admit that. And he just wants people on social media to be careful about what they say, because you can say anything you want. And then the question is it backed by evidence? And, he says, at the end of the day, he says that we want to provide tools to individuals to help them. And, I point out that when it comes to individuals that happen to be insulin resistant or diabetic, and he agrees that, he says low carb initially will work, but we also make the point that low carb long-term will help these individuals. And it addresses both the hormones and the calories.
Yeah, look, we've had him on the podcast, I think once or twice, Brian, I forget, once or twice. And we did a debate for charity, so I put myself through 3.5 hours of him. And I think it's going to be fun. We also need to antagonize outside of the chamber, right? So we need to draw these people in. We need to be able to have discussions. And we need to be able to, so the fact that Karim Nassir's there, the fact that, Lane Norton's there, I think Gabrielle Leon, a lot of people are there who I think can extend sort of the messaging that we take for granted in metabolic health. So I'm excited about it. And wow, I'm happy to hear that I get the last word. So,
yeah.
So I didn't realize how that was all scheduled. Are we on a panel together or no?
No, unfortunately, you're not on a panel together, but certainly, when you or Lane are on the panel, you can get up on the Q&A and ask questions.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Sure. So the mic is open. And look, just to review. So, the theme of the conference, where is nutrition headed? And so we're going to address a lot of stuff. And so we're going to look at, the age of the patient, the sex of the patient, what level of activity, what are the current medical problems, what would be the best approach to diet. We're going to look at cardiovascular health. We're going to look at fitness. We're going to look at food addiction. That's your topic. Abby Bleistein, who's right here in Colorado, is going to address eating disorders. So you're actually on the panel with her in the afternoon. We're going to look at mental health and metabolic health. We're going to look at male health. We're going to look at a condition called lipedema. We're going to look at fasting, thyroid. It just goes on. And the idea is that at the end of the day, we want the audience to learn something and to hear from different people who will be sharing different perspectives, and that their perspectives are indeed as evidence-based as we can get, because the conference gets approved by the medical authority for educational credits.
So tell me about that, because I'm interested. I'm sure every doctor listening, PA, NP, RD, how many CME credits or CPD credits do they get there?
Yeah, so usually between 18 and 20. And Tro, you were involved with this, and I can tell a funny story being the educational content provider. And you understand, again, I was joking that we're all somewhat anti-establishment. But when we're looking for educational credit, we're actually going out to the establishment and asking them to praise what we're doing. And, don't you see the irony in that? but at the end of the day, we're trying to work with them because we're walking that fence where we want to work with the establishment to recognize that we're doing legitimate things and we're educating and it's worthy of educational credit.
Yeah, and outcomes, right? We're looking at outcomes and say, hey, if your approach, that's why I love these kind of conferences, because you have people with different approaches saying, okay, let me look at that. Let me assess that. Maybe doing some of what Lane's doing and some of this, but I like to take a piece of each person. You know, I like to take more of Dr. Unwin's approach, right? And not fight with people on social media. Dave Feldman, who takes attacks and he has such grace and dignity and he's going to be speaking. Dave Diamond, who I always thought, man, he's a hardcore, like he is hardcore. And then we had him on the podcast and we had a great discussion about cardiac risk, right? And saying, hey, is it reasonable sometimes? Or what would you do in this patient? And he had such great answers. And he's looked at the literature and the data. And so people like that can help guide us on the right path. And we may say, oh, you know, let's look at these studies and maybe we do change what we're doing. Maybe cutting back on some fat for some people and going up on the fat for other people, you know, healthy fats and things like that. So ultimately realizing one may be right for one patient, one may be right for another, and we just pick up all those tools that we can help as many people as we can.
So the great example, Brian, is that we actually have individuals that are not at their ideal body weight to come in to see us, and we measure them for, you know, their degree of insulin resistance. And so on the one side, we have the fully insulin resistant or diabetic individual, and then on the other side, we have individuals that are actually insulin sensitive. They're metabolically, things look like they're going quite well. Now, you know, it turns out that it's more women that tend to be insulin resistant and not at their ideal body weight. And, you know, the thing is, it's probably got something to do with child rearing, and they're still struggling. And so with those individuals, if you put them on a low carb, high fat diet, you know, it might work for a little bit, but then they hit a plateau and their weight starts to go up. So, you know, the approach with them is a bit different, and that, you know, at the end of the day, fat is caloric dense and the calories do matter. And so you have to, you know, usually in all individuals, you got to back down on the fat intake once they become, say, fat adapted, or if they're already insulin sensitive. So this is where, you know, you want to use different tools, as Lane Norton says, to help the individual that will get them their result.
And also, you know, I see here you have Siobhan Huggins talking about lipedema. And I've had patients with lipedema. They go on a high-fat ketogenic diet, they lose weight. I have a lady, she lost a significant doing fat bombs and all this stuff. And she came to my new practice. I said, that's it. We're going clean. We're going to cut down the fat. You don't need that extra energy in your system. And she did terrible. We added in a little fat bomb to her and she starts losing weight again. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. Like, even though her caloric intake was going up, she's having results. And you go, okay, let's, you know, we're not all the same. And that's something we, you know, and I know a lot of us were talking about, let's do, you know, protein sparing, modified fast. But some people works great. Some people hate it, you know? So it's kind of figuring out like what works in your lifestyle and what works based on how you're arriving. And like you said, it's critical that I see people all the time that are obese, but they're metabolically very healthy. I have a lady yesterday, as a matter of fact, she's 195 pounds. Her visceral fat is less than 1 liter, right? And her insulin is going to be fine. And she's storing a lot of subcutaneous fat. But as she's going through menopause, she's going to start shifting that to the visceral fat, then increase cardiometabolic risk and inflammatory markers and all that.
Yeah, lipedema is a great topic, and you know, it's another outside the box area. And for years, we would see patients, and you know, still most doctors don't understand it. And so it's this unusual distribution of body fat from the waist down, particularly in women. And so the story of insulin resistance applies to them as well. So you have patients with lipedema who are insulin resistant, and on the other side, you have patients that are insulin sensitive. And then Siobhan and Leslie Keith will really be giving a great talk. The organization is rather active, and it was time to get them at the conference.
Awesome. Yeah, and you have such a wide spectrum of people too. I'm seeing pediatric non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is a disaster. Like we already addressed. It's like, just shoot them up with drugs and give them surgery instead of saying, can a low carb diet help these people? And we all see that. Rob Sivas was the first one that, talking about this, saying, yeah, you could reverse it very quickly. You know, NASH and we change the term for it all the time. But yeah, it's amazing how much lifestyle intervention can intercede with that.
Yeah, that's Amy Goss. She's actually our only registered dietitian giving a talk. And somebody emailed us, criticized us. You're having a nutrition conference, and there's only one registered dietitian giving a talk. But over the years, we've had different registered dietitians, so that should be an interesting one as well.
So
Yeah, I see Marty Kendall there too. He's a good guy.
We're getting him from Australia. We've
Yeah.
been bugging him for years, and he has a really unique perspective on nutrition and more focused on satiety and nutrient-dense foods that are mainly protein-based.
yeah, I've seen a subtle shift in certain aspects of the low carb community to focus. I think it's always focused on satiety and hunger. That's been my laser focus. But there's been a shift away, this subtle fat phobia that's kind of gotten a hold. And I wonder if it'll backfire. I wonder if it'll end up backfiring.
Yeah.
A lot of, Marty Kendall, Ted Naiman, even to some extent Diet Doctor, I think.
Andreas, yeah.
Yeah, and the big, and basically it pushes low carb towards, the Lane Nortons of the world, which basically preach, protein first, then it doesn't matter, right? Then it doesn't matter. So I wonder if that approach is appropriate. I wonder if it's more effective. I just wonder about those things. And
there's a good point, Tro. And Lane is more caloric centric than protein centric. But look, I've been at this again for almost 25 years, and we've seen the ebbs and flows. And at the end of the day, each year we call it something different. And does the approach change? The only thing that changes is the conversation and not the genetics. So it's fun to have the conversation, and I don't know that it would backfire, but looking back, my views and my recommendations have changed over the years. But I think that we want to bring it all together and to not have this dichotomy where it's all about the hormones or it's all about the calories, but it's kind of a unifying message that makes metabolic sense.
Both matter. I think both matter. That's what I think. One of those things, like, these guys will argue about calorie restriction. Yes, if you go low carb keto, and a lot of times people eat less naturally in that way, so you are calorie restricting by definition. To lose weight, you have to bring in less than if you want to lose weight, you have to bring in less energy than you're burning ultimately. If you're eating 10,000 calories of butter a day, you're not going to lose weight, right? And some of us, like myself, last year I was doing one meal a day 85% of the time and lost 0 pounds, right? Adding in some wine and you here or there, you slack on your workouts, but it's pretty amazing. So maybe you need to change it up a bit. So now I'm forcing myself to have 2 meals here and there, and then 1 meal, and doing a 36 or 48-hour fast and throw that in there. And so I think that having some dynamic and flexibility of not just saying, and I believe we're going to find that in the same person. Tro does this, and I think it's what I'm gravitating towards too. And sometimes when people are very metabolically sick, we go on a higher fat ketogenic diet to start, and then we start pulling the fat out and going more higher protein, and people do really well. And we adjust it over time, seeing if we're plateaued for a while, we gotta make a course correction somewhere, either exercise or fasting or whatever, nighttime eating, stress, sleep, all those other factors.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so I think there's really a lot of common themes that we're going to agree to. Both Karam Nassir, Lane Norton, whoever else you want to pick. And the other aspect is fitness and exercise. So, I mentioned we're going to get into fitness and talking about, Gabrielle Lyon and muscle-centric health, and the idea that, our muscles. Yeah, I love the muscles. It's our own organ. And, I've been going to the gym the past year and a half. I went back. That was my resolution after the past several years. And have been making some gains, and it's fun. You feel well. Muscle serves as a drain for energy, and so that's one of the other important aspects in terms of improving our metabolic health.
Absolutely.
How many people are you expected to come?
Yeah, we'd like to have 1,000, but we're probably going to be somewhere around 500, which is excellent. We're getting a lot of interesting exhibitors coming to the event because Peter Peter Bellman is our expo manager. We never had an expo manager, but he comes from the biohacking world, and Dave Asprey. So, we're going to have food, lifestyle, supplements, biohacking, medical testing. So that aspect will be interesting, along with the 30 speakers. We'll have a couple of breakout sessions, and then we're going to have some evening activities. So, my goal is to make this thing memorable each and every year. And so hopefully it'll be that way again.
Well, the last one I went to was definitely memorable. The world shut down right at the beginning of the conference, right? That was a crazy, crazy time. Right. But I think that one of the things that brought the attention to metabolic health, what you've been talking about for 25 years, it's never been more clear that this is critically important.
Brian, you gave such an incredible talk in 2020. You had your eye on the prize. You ignored everything that was going on. And your talk, you just connect with the audience, and how you explained how you connect with the patients. I was actually in tears. That was a fantastic presentation. It was a terrible year, and it's been 3 years. And so I don't think anyone's going to hold us back this time.
Yeah, and your courage of doing this again, if I had that happen, I know it was a huge loss and people pulled out the last second. I felt really bad for you, because I knew it's hard, because you invested months and months and months and thousands of dollars to get this going. People don't realize the risk you take. I know Doug Reynolds personally, I know that the huge financial risk you guys take doing these things. But when you have a passion, you want to bring people together and help a community and help bring people together. And there's nothing more powerful than community. I think that's one thing that we know, is that the power of community, of coming together and being around people who go, oh yeah, there's only heavy whipping cream here, that kind of thing. It makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your comment, Brian. And yeah, for Doug Reynolds and, our event, we do take a huge financial risk. And, my passion is nutrition education. I mean, that's my legacy. I've figured that out over the years, whether it's speaking to patients one-on-one, lecturing, writing a book, and now doing conferences. That's what I enjoy doing. And in a sense, it's a labor of love, but it's also my second full-time job. And, we never intended to make any money from these events. It would be nice to take home a little bit of money at the end of the day. We didn't do so well in 2020. And this year, the goal is just to break even. And just if you don't mind, I'd like to put in a plug. And the idea to our audience is that you're our biggest asset. And if you support nutrition science, you support our event, and you help pay for the event. And if you enjoy the conferences and you want them to continue and you want to come in person, well, you too have to come and support the event. And so together we make this happen. And so that's why my goal is to make it a memorable experience in a positive way.
Yeah, I can't wait to go. I got to be honest with you. I'm excited about it. I hear there's a low-carb baking mix company coming. I hear there's a medical practice also coming.
Oh, shoot, Tro. I was going to see if I could crouch on your couch. That doesn't mean if the missus is...
Tro is plugging his business and his wife's business.
Yeah. We'll be there to support as best we can. You know what it's like. And I look up to you to be able to organize something like this is... amazing. We've supported certainly the SMHP, and we're so happy to support Low Carb Denver any way we can, because we need a community of docs. Jeff, you and I were on we have a low carb cabal. We're on this secret email thread, and I'm sure you saw in that thread this discussion of where is the low carb home going to be? Where does metabolic lifestyle medicine end up? And certain people proposed the American Academy of Family Practitioners, and I have no problem with them, other than that they took money from Coca-Cola and are basically bought and paid for. And I have no problem with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which was another proposition. Maybe we can form a committee. And again, I have no problem with them, but they're very clear that they're plant forward, and that's a heavy part of their agenda and their and so where exactly is the home for doctors who are looking to network, who are passionate about metabolic health, and who happen to eat meat or fish or chicken? That home that exists is, basically the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, basically, conferences like yours, LowCarb Denver, and, the Low Carb USA conferences, and, Low Carb Down Under, and et cetera. And this is our home. We don't have a home elsewhere, in my opinion. So I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Tro. Look, the plant-based organizations, which is really just a cover word for vegetarians, is strong. It's been around for years, and they're very, very connected. And look, the institutions are going to accept money and pay money for research. That's just the game. That's how it works. And so we're trying to create and be our own institution, and slowly but surely we're making progress.
Yeah, and it's thanks to people like you who are putting up their own money to organize doctors. So I just want to say that I appreciate that, and I think we need more of that. And I'm just hopefully we can find a way, Jeff, to get you more involved in the SMHP so that we can grow even further. And Brian, we've been begging you for a while, but you're so busy.
That's my new. I'm gonna give Doug a call, and I'm gonna talk to you guys. We'll figure some stuff out. I've been
because we need
little busy.
Well, I'll tell you, we need physician entrepreneurs, physician leaders, right? So that we can help these docs network for the new docs coming up. We don't have those organizations, so that's why I'm excited about Low Carb Denver, because it's just an opportunity to meet 500 other people. So I can't wait. That and Karim this year. You sold me at Karim this year. So
yeah, and really, I think it's important. These conferences, it's always uplifting and charging for me, because you see people that come up and say, I lost 200 pounds. My life changed. I'm not depressed anymore. Thank you. We see people all the time that we've impacted, because again, just like you, Jeff, we said, hey, Tro and I talked, and Jason, and said, we're not going to take money. We're not going to take sponsors on this podcast. And I said, well, maybe we can get Patreon to float us. And look, it took a little while, but it's floating us now. And so Patreon supporters, we greatly appreciate that. Like, it's that grassroots of people saying, because the reality is 98% of people are going to listen all the time, but they're never going to say, I'll give these guys $3 or $5. And, I believe in this cause, just like people going to church or going to other organizations where they go, yeah, there's an important cause and I'll get the benefit, but I'm not going to pay my hard-earned money for that. Right. So it's those people who stood up and, at your conferences, and you stepping up and saying, let's bring people together. It's going to cost me maybe, but you know what? You're going to have the greatest panels here. And when you can have a reasonable discussion with someone you disagree with and say, what's your reasoning? And maybe we change our views, to have people of different views. We can't just be a sounding board of everyone says the same thing and everyone has to do the same thing. So the greatest talks I've heard, as a matter of fact, at Denver, was Ben Bickman saying, hey, look, guys, there's more to the story than this, or Ben Bakiki, or the workout guy saying, look, you're missing this aspect you have to look at. And that's revolutionized what we're doing, because we've listened to each other a little bit.
Are you members or certified in obesity medicine?
Yes,
that's right. So the OMA is another favorable institution. They thought outside the box. It was great. Eric Westman was their president for a time, and so we actually have members of the low carb community that are board certified in obesity medicine. And we've reached out to them over the years, but again, they're not quite aligned in the direction of where we're headed.
Metabolic health is the focus. And if you're interested in metabolic health and you happen to eat meat, the only home for you is the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. That's my honest opinion. OMA, there's a reason why Eric Westman's on our board. I wish the OMA could be our home. I wish the AFP could be our home. And I really certainly wish that ACLM could be, because they just got a $44 million grant from New York City to provide education. I wish we could go with them.
ACLM, again, is the plant-based group. And,
correct. American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Yes.
Yeah, we've been at odds with them on the the interest group, the membership interest group on the
AA. I mean, I just don't think there is another place for us. And our home, it's very clear. I think it's the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and it's people like you that, and people like Brian and myself and Eric Westman and all these people. We've got to get together, and I'm just I'm excited. I'm excited. I know we're going to have a booth, right, at Denver, I think.
Well, look, trust me,
Yeah.
SMHP is going to be at the event also with Doug, and we're aligned with you. And you know, I see us coming together over the next several years. You know, Doug's group and our group, and we always have ongoing conversations.
Yeah, I can't wait. And just getting you involved as a mentor, you know, that would be great. I can't, you know, there's got to be tons of doctors out there that'll benefit from your wisdom. Guys, I think we're
Yeah,
going
a voice of reason, a voice of
Thank
reason.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
and you're doing great work. Thank you.
I'm getting old. They're calling me mentors.
No, we need the mentors, right? We need them, right? So who's going to tell Tro not to be so rambunctious on social media? You know, there's got to be somebody out there.
Keep going, Tro.
And until you get banned, Troy, you can't talk about being rambunctious yet, man.
Yeah, they banned me.
Get banned at least.
I was shadow banned for 2 years.
Weren't we shadow banned? Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that's these things that people don't understand is I don't really look at the numbers necessarily, but since Elon took over and started speaking a little truth, and my numbers have dramatically increased. It's dramatic. And friends of mine goes, I haven't seen you for 2 years. I'm like, I've been yapping about stuff for 2 years, but they don't see it. And it's amazing how that happens. That you know, if you talk a little bit outside the box, they don't really like that, and so it's fun.
Yeah, we mentioned before the podcast that, you know, we're anti-establishment, but we're at different levels of being anti-establishment, and where we sit is where we should continue to be. And for myself, you know, I'm kind of on the fence, walking the tightrope, trying to bridge it and to bring it together. And then, you know, we have the people that, you know, are on the opposite sides, and so we all need to be there. And I don't know about the shadow banning stuff.
Yeah,
there should be less of that.
Yeah, well, there's not going to be. I mean, it's been very clear that our whole, you know, a lot has changed. Look at California. I mean, you're lucky you're in beautiful Colorado. You know, you're lucky you're in beautiful Colorado. Those doctors in California, you know, they have to think twice before making a recommendation that's not pro-drug.
Well, then maybe that's what I have to do, Tro. Maybe I use my Arizona license for the pod. Everyone, I'm using my Arizona license for the podcast, and I'm using my California license for my practice. So they're two separate entities. So that's how, or I could drive over like 100 miles that way, and I could talk about different things. Isn't that crazy? Like, you know, we're bounded by state dogma. Temporarily, it's going to blow over, but you know, it's pretty crazy.
Anyway.
Well, I didn't get kicked off social media. So
well, you're so kind. That's why.
There's my position.
Yeah,
know, that's the game I play.
Yeah. So everyone, I would say if you have the means, if you're and I'll tell you some great things about Denver. It's central. It's a huge hub, so it's cheaper to fly there. You don't have to go to New York and deal with all the crazy New Yorkers, or California to deal with us. And so it's a nice central place. And also, you know, I think the big value is the conversations we have between the talks, you know, at breakout sessions and the social media, you know, the social gatherings and things like that. You learn a lot from people, and you realize, yeah, maybe I do like Lane, maybe I do like Tro, you know, that kind of thing. And you know, it's great. That facility is fantastic. So man, maybe if someone calls in sick, let me know. I'll be the first one on the list to fill in for someone.
Yeah, and listen, the weather is really dry and mild in Denver in February. The airport is 10 minutes away from the hotel, so it's really easy to get in and out. And people are generally surprised about the weather in February. March, you know, we've had it in March, and it can be a little iffy. We get some big, heavy bomb cyclones in March, but generally not in February. So don't let the fear of the weather stop you.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to go. And I know some people ski, so but you know, it's nice to be able to get off the airplane, go to a beautiful resort, you know, not even 5 or 10 minutes off the airport. And the facility was beautiful. You know, I can't tell you enough, that's a great venue. You know, you should keep it for a bit.
That's where we met, Tro. That's where we met face to face the first time. Remember, in Denver? That was the first time we got to like, oh, you're Tro. Hey, Brian. Right? That was crazy.
Was that when we bunked?
No, we didn't bunk there. That we in Boca when you saved me from being homeless that night. I didn't have anywhere to stay, and Tro said that you could sleep on the couch.
Okay, there's your memorable moment there, but we have stories. You know, I've been talking to this person for years, and he actually is part of my staff. We work together, and now we're going to share a room together. I'm a little nervous about that.
No, it's PG, totally.
And it's funny because at Denver, actually, there was someone that we follow each other on Twitter like crazy, and we connected. We had lunch together, and I tweeted to him. I said, "Hey, we should get together." And he's like, "We just had lunch together," and I didn't realize it was a different person than their Twitter handle. I didn't realize it was the same person. It was like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. So, anyways, it's so much fun when you get together with people and you get to meet people that a lot of us interact a lot on social media, but once you finally meet them and they say, "Oh, here's my handle," like, "Oh my gosh, I know you. You're doing great work," So it's fun. It's a
Right.
blast.
That's the difference between doing it virtually and doing it in person. It's a total different experience and well worth it.
And are you doing virtual also?
Yes. So virtual for the general public, virtual for healthcare professionals. So you can even get credits after the conference ends.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. And so, Troy, we'll have a link and all that.
Yeah, Jack will probably put it up on, I can't wait, and we'll put this out in our newsletter too, and we'll get the word out. Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate you coming out, and thank you for what you do. I really can't thank you enough. It's conferences like this that help young docs network, and hopefully we can drag you in to the SMHP and get you as a mentor, which doesn't mean old guy. It means just literally helping the 28, 30-year-old.
You could be a junior mentor.
You could be a junior mentor. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. I'll accept that. Well, yeah, thank you. It's great to be on the podcast, and yeah, we're looking forward to your talk, Tro, and then Brian, hopefully you can make it in for the day, and also to your audience, I hope you can join us at the conference.
How do they go to is it LowCarb Denver Conferences? Remind me the link again.
LowCarb Conferences.
LowCarb Conferences. Perfect. LowCarbConferences.com.
I also wanted to mention for the LowCarb MD podcast is that we've made a special 10% discount link for registering. And the code is LCD 2023 MD podcast. And you guys will put that out in the notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can't wait.